Hi, this is Trey Pastor. There's another story by Mr. Nightmare. 4 creepy true Uber stories. Okay, and this is should be especially good. Especially there's a real life situation that happened. I think in the news a couple of weeks ago, where the girl came from a bar and she mistakenly got into a car that she thought was an Uber, and she wound up getting murdered. So that was just another story that freaked me out. Anyway, let's get to this one. I'll be right back with my reaction. Okay, let me put my headphones in. Okay, here we go. Right now, go. Story 1.
What you're about to hear was the worst night of my life. I went out to a downtown club with my boyfriend and his friends on a Saturday night. My boyfriend and I hadn't been getting along for a while, and at some point in the club we had an argument. I didn't want to be there anymore, so I went outside and called an Uber to pick me up. It was raining that night, so I waited under the awning of a building nearby to the club. A white car pulled up in front of me and stopped. I walked over, and the woman driving rolled down the window. She said, "Uber?" And I said, "Yeah," and then her name. She said yes. So I got in the back seat. I asked, "How are you?" And I'm pretty sure she didn't answer.
Okay.
When I didn't hear a response to my question, I shot a glance up from my phone for a second. The woman had both hands firmly planted on the steering wheel. She was driving in a very stiff, upright position. She also had very curly hair and a somewhat darker skin complexion. She was driving down the street I usually took to get home, only she was going the opposite way. I didn't want to speak up and correct her just yet, because maybe she was taking a different route. The further we went away from my house, though, the more concerned and frustrated I got. Finally, I spoke up and told her she was going the wrong way. She said in a horrible, thick accent, something about how she was going to the highway instead.
What?
I knew for a fact the highway wasn't the quicker route.
Exactly.
Then my phone vibrated, and I looked down to see the notification from Uber. It said on my screen, "Meet Uber driver now."
Oh.
I opened up the app, and it said my Uber had just arrived at the point I was originally standing at, and that the car I was supposed to get in was a black Nissan.
Oh.
At this point, I started saying in a louder voice to the driver that she wasn't my Uber. I asked her to pull over and let me out, and when she didn't seem to acknowledge me, I started to actually yell and push at her seat. Even though the car was moving, I even tried opening the door, but the child lock was apparently off. After a little more yelling, she finally looked at me through the mirror, then pulled off to the side. The door clicked unlocked, and I got out of the car and walked away from it. My actual Uber driver was calling me, and I picked up, apologizing, asking him to come to my current location. He said he'd be right over, and 5 minutes later, the car pulled up. When I got in the car, I explained everything to him, and he stopped the car, looked at me, and told me I just escaped a sex trafficking trap.
What?
There had been reports of multiple fake Ubers going around trying to trick unsuspecting victims into getting into the car to lure them to unknown locations.
Jeez.
It was apparently part of a sex trafficking ring, and the drivers were usually female to appear less intimidating to the female victims.
Makes sense.
I just want to stress to everyone to make sure the car you're getting into is actually your Uber.
Exactly. Story 2.
One night when I was decently drunk after leaving a bar, I started messaging people on Tinder. Some girl named Alicia had messaged me, so I messaged her back. She answered almost immediately, asking what I was doing that night. I said I was just leaving a bar looking for someone to hang out with. She wrote back, "You should come over and smoke." I said, "Yeah, send me your address." She sent back her address promptly. It seemed like the quickest, easiest, most ideal Tinder match a guy could ask for on a Saturday night.
Too easy.
I called for an Uber to drop me off at that address. The driver pulled up in his Honda, and I got in the front seat. Usually I would get in the back seat, but I was decently drunk and feeling extra social. The driver seemed cool. I was honest with him about where I was going, telling him I was about to meet a girl from Tinder. He laughed and said nice, and started going on about his stories meeting girls as an Uber driver and such. On the way there, I asked Alicia for her number, and she gave it to me. I started texting her, and she gave normal answers.
Okay.
When we got to the house, the driver said the house seemed familiar to him. Had to admit it did look a little sketchy since there were no cars in the driveway and the lights were off.
Ah,
He told me to be careful. I thanked him and said goodbye, and he drove away down the block and stopped near the end, I'm guessing setting up his next ride. I walked up to the house and tried to ring the bell, but I didn't hear a bell from the inside, so I knocked on the door. Then I tried calling Alicia. It went to voicemail after one ring, but she texted me right after saying it's open, come inside.
hell no.
Then there was a knock at the window, which almost gave me a heart attack. I looked at the window, and even though there were no lights on inside, I saw the blind was slightly lifted, and someone was waving their hand on the other side of the window. Before I tried the door, a number not saved on my phone started calling me. I assumed it was Alicia, so I picked up. But instead of hearing the voice of a girl, I heard the familiar voice of my Uber driver. He ordered me in a very concerned voice to walk away from the house right now.
Oh,
I then saw the Uber driver's car pull back up in front of the house. He told me to get back in the car. I hung up the phone and listened to him. As soon as I got in the car, he drove away from the house and told me that the house was vacant. And just the previous month, someone had been lured into that house, robbed, and murdered.
Jesus.
It was a story that likely could have been similar to my own had I stepped into that house.
Yep.
It was a lot for me to take in, but I thanked that Uber driver the best I
Saved
could,
your life.
and even took his number because he was so cool and I couldn't appreciate him enough. The next morning when I was sober, this was even more disturbing to think about.
Saved your life. Lucky he was a decent guy. Saved your life. 23.
It was a Monday night, a slower night for an Uber driver, especially in our bum-ass town. So when a trip request popped up on my screen, I jumped on it. I was picking up a guy named John. I drove across the neighborhood to a corner liquor store that was closed at this hour.
Okay.
There were two young guys waiting on the corner, and when I pulled up to the curb, they got in the car. I confirmed John's name to make sure he was who I was picking up. Then I started heading to their destination. The two whispered to each other, and it was a little odd. I looked at the rearview mirror every once in a while, and every time I did, they would both notice and look back at me. I kept trying not to look, but I found myself accidentally doing it over and over. I asked them where they were headed. Neither of them answered.
Come on.
I figured they didn't hear me because the back window was open and there was wind noise. So I asked again. This time one of them yelled Harris Avenue. It didn't answer the main point of my question, which was to be polite and make small talk. But it did let me know these two were not exactly people I wanted in my car.
Exactly.
I felt my big toe press a bit harder on the gas instinctively, just knowing I wanted to get there sooner. We got to the street, but the apparent address they wanted me to pull up to was some rundown storefront with a group of guys in front. I slowed down and asked if this was it. I turned around to face them and saw they were both wearing masks, similar to the masks from the movie The Purge. I felt something press up against the back of my shoulder. I assumed it was a gun. They told me pull up to where the guys were outside. I did so, and three big guys also wearing masks came up to my window, demanding my wallet. I gave it to them without hesitation, and the two guys in the back seat got out. The five masked men all together walked away from my car, one of them kicking at my door while passing.
Jesus.
I drove away and reported it to Uber, who said they'd get in contact with the authorities. It turned out the info used on that John person's account was all fake, and he was using a stolen credit
There you
card.
go.
I lost $250, my IDs, and countless cards in my wallet, but I'm just happy I escaped with my life.
Yeah, that's true. They could have murdered you. 24.
After leaving a friend's Super Bowl party, I called an Uber to drive me home. When I got in the Uber, there was a guy in a baseball hat sitting in the back seat. I didn't say anything to acknowledge it. I just said hi to the driver. I figured I must have called an Uber pool instead of just a regular Uber.
Okay.
I didn't care though. We got to my house, I got out of the car and shut the door. I heard a second door shut on the other side, though.
Oh boy.
When the car drove away, I saw the guy who had been sitting next to me in the baseball hat, standing in the street, facing in my direction,
Ugh.
but his head down so that his hat was covering his face.
Ugh.
I said, "What's up? What's going on?" He started to walk away. Still, I knew something was going on.
Yep.
So instead of walking to my house, I started walking around the block.
Okay.
I saw the man on the opposite sidewalk across the street walking in my same direction.
Oh boy.
When there was an intersection in the street, I turned. When I saw he did the same thing, I ran.
Jeez.
When I saw he started to run too,
Ugh.
the adrenaline kicked in,
Gee.
and I sprinted faster than I'd ever ran in my life. I ran faster than him, and when I made it to my house, I ran to the backyard before he could possibly see where I went.
Okay.
Then I went into the house. I called the Uber driver at once, and he told me the guy next to me said he knew the next guy the Uber driver would be picking up, which ended up being me.
So,
The driver had his info, so he said he would report the guy. I don't know what happened because I never called or texted the Uber driver again. I also don't know why exactly that guy would be targeting people getting out of Ubers,
to rob him.
but it definitely taught me to be more cautious with Uber rides.
Yeah, guy was probably trying to rob you. That's what. He's gonna jump you. And rob you. But the smart thing you did was going around and not going directly to your house. 'Cause that guy looked like he was gonna rob you. That's exactly what that looked like. And like I said, that second story, oof. So I know you get drunk and you get desperate and you get stupid, but you got to be more smarter than that. Some girl that you never met before invite you over to her house, and you go to the house and it's dark. Come on. And she's texting you telling you, come on in. Come on. You got to be smarter than that, okay? I know guys think with their with their little head, but come on. You got to be smarter than that, okay? I don't care how drunk you are. You got to be smart enough to know if some random girl on Tinder tells you to come by her house and you pull up to the house and it's dark, and come on, and she tells you to get it. You're lucky that Uber driver was conscientious to come back and get you, because you could have walked in, like I said, and got killed and murdered. Exactly, your family would have never known, why and stuff. And this guy saved your life. Lucky that it was that Uber driver was a decent guy. And that first story, again, that girl is truly fortunate. Okay, that lady didn't get to her destination wherever she's going to take you before that's crazy. Exactly, like I said, women are vulnerable. Exactly, women are very vulnerable in society. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. Unless you got a gun or something, you're vulnerable. And like I said, a slavery thing, I can see that happening. Exactly. They give you a female driver so that way you're more comfortable, more relaxed. But then again, like I said, you knew she was taking the opposite of the way you were going to go. Exactly. Good thing you stood up for yourself and say, hey, this is not where I'm supposed to be. But you always got to double check your Uber driver before you get in there that it's the person that, at the car license, and it's the person, exactly. There's got to be a way to double check that with Uber. Say, he's going to be driving this type of car, this is going to be the license, and it's going to be a man or it's going to be a woman, and this is their name. So they can show you their ID. So that way you double check. Exactly. Because like I said, you never know. Like that case I was talking about before in the beginning of this video, where the girl came from a bar and she just hopped in an Uber because she thought it was her Uber and she didn't double check. And the guy, he was probably sitting there stalking, waiting for drunk people to come out of the bar so he could probably rob her and wind up murdering her and dumping her in a field somewhere. You got to be very careful. And then that guy, come on, he picked up two sketchy guys and they put on masks. Come on. And take you, and you're lucky they didn't kill you. They just robbed you. Exactly. He pulled, come on. You got to be very, very careful, especially the Uber drivers themselves too, about who you pick up and stuff, because it's dangerous out there, a lot more dangerous than you think. Anyway, let me know what you think of these 4 Uber horror stories from Mr. Nightmare. Great channel, 4 creepy true Uber stories. That's what it's called. I'll leave a link to Mr. Nightmare's channel in the description box so you can check it out for yourself. Also have links to my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram in the description box, as well as a link to my other channel, Paul's Views and Opinions. Please check that out as well. And this is Trey Pastor saying so long and take care.